Hi there to you all televiewers. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the news. Our major stories tonight. Journalists in Cameroon join others the world over today to observe the World Press Freedom Day with focus on journalism and environmental protection. The soldiers of the pen used the opportunity to decry the sort of repression by public authorities plus difficult access to information. How do journalists in the northwest and southwest regions practice in the midst of rising insecurity? They will be telling us their challenges or plight in this news edition. Plus, at least 4 persons have died following a landslide that happened in Maroua that was earlier today. Viewers, those are our major stories. Details when we come back. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for the confidence. We begin this edition of the news on a rather sad note. 4 persons have lost their lives and 2 others in critical condition following a landslide that happened that was on Thursday in the evening in Maroua, precisely at the Farolina neighborhood. The governor of the Far North region, Mijiawa Bakari, says authorities had warned the inhabitants to stop visiting or constructing unrisk zones. Lucy Diengu is here now tells us more about the tragic incident which happened in Maroua.
A dreadful Thursday for the inhabitants of Farolina, located in Maroua in the Far North region. 4 persons died and others severely injured in a landslide which occurred this Thursday evening. The governor of the Far North region visits the scene to evaluate the damage.
Et en plus, c'est des femmes d'un certain âge. Parce que là, nous déplorons la mort de 3 femmes et d'un enfant de 7 ans. Les femmes sont âgées de 50 ans, voire plus.
The local population, mostly women, on daily basis visit this area to split stones found at the foot of the mountain.
Il était question d'arrêter, de stopper cette activité-là. We do call people from Farolina to stop this activity. It is a dangerous one. We are looking for area to enable them to have their houses pour les autonomiser.
The cracking of stones has been the major income generating activity for the inhabitants of Farolina. Despite the efforts of the local population and the intervention of the Army Rescue Unit, 2 persons could be saved, but they are battling between life and death at the Maroua Regional Hospital. As immediate response, the government has promised to relocate the victims.
And away from that, we talk about the World Press Freedom Day, which is being observed today. Journalists in Douala have been challenged to be ambassadors of preserving the environment in which they live in. The call was made by different speakers during a workshop to observe the World Press Freedom Day at the Douala Linguistics Center. It was organized by the Cameroon Association of English-Speaking Journalists, CAMASEJ-D. Our reporter, Simanjikan Gabriel, was there.
Freedom in Cameroon is threatened by those who should be guarantors, political authorities. Journalists continue to face intimidation, threats, arrest, torture and detention for reporting the truth.
Celebrated under the theme, A Praise for the Planet, Journalism in the Face of Environmental Crisis. Journalists based in Douala have been schooled on how to conserve the environment and urged to be the ambassadors to kick against those who still think the environment can be saved.
Press freedom, it therefore means that the press is gapped. You cannot ask for what you already have. It means that you didn't have the freedom, you are asking for it. And somebody cannot give you what he does not have.
Notwithstanding the theme of the day, journalists still complain about the challenges they go through to carry out their daily activities.
I have mixed feelings as far as the press in Cameroon today is concerned. It's repression that we have been fighting for, no matter what the situation, and they're trying to stifle or close the mouths of the press for them not to maybe do what, or maybe to express themselves in whatever they have been trained to do.
Some of the journalists still have doubts about the so-called freedom of the press in Cameroon.
It's still a little bit pessimistic when I want to talk about the press, because journalists still face a lot of harassment, threats, intimidation. We understand that we had this terrorism law that is behind journalists as well. So journalists, they don't have that freedom to exercise their duty as supposed to be. I would just say press freedom in Cameroon is still on paper, but it's not practiced.
The members of the Cameroon English-speaking journalists Kamsej Douala chapter, after listening to several exposés from environmental experts, have been given a new challenge to engage in the battle to protect the environment.
And still talking about journalists and their daily challenges, journalists working in conflict-hit regions in Cameroon have been urged also not to succumb to the security threats, but rather stand out thorough by being fair, balanced, and credible when gathering information. Meantime, the government has been called upon to guarantee a free press by ensuring that journalists are not harassed or prevented from doing their job. Immaculate Fogwe tells us more.
The safety of journalists reporting in Anglophone Cameroon has been jeopardized since the escalation of the armed conflict. Several journalists are now exposed to security threats such as killings, kidnappings for ransom, harassment, and unfriendly media laws.
Reporting within war context is one of the most challenging journalism, because within war context there's a lot of risk. It's not difficult now for anybody to lose his or her life.
Journalists have find it very difficult reporting in this kind of crisis period. So journalists have been very tactical in reporting because they are the belligerents in the ongoing crisis. You may report and you don't favor this other end, you are in trouble. And if you report this other way, you are still in trouble. So we are in the middle.
Another preoccupation of journalists living in these conflict zones is accessing information. Many decry the fact that they are now considered as spies whenever they are reporting on atrocities committed by both camps.
Where we still find access to information so difficult because of administrative bottleneck and the hoarding of information by some persons. It is still a daily reality that a journalist who is interested on a topical issue which Cameroonians in Boya, the southwest region, and elsewhere in the country are interested in, would draw close to a municipal authority, an administrative authority, or some other person who is a news source, and you'd hear things like they do not have the clearance to make that information.
Commemorating World Press Freedom Day, a legal mind, Barrister Boyo Fontama, urges journalists to avoid being manipulated by those in power, while reiterating the need to respect the canons of journalism.
The International Declaration for the Protection of Journalists is equally there to protect and ensure that journalists are not being tortured, they are not being arrested, they are not being dehumanized, they are not being deported, and that forceful disappearance shall not be meted on them.
Ensuring a free press in Cameroon will go a long way in achieving a balanced social development and democratic stability.
We continue talking about the World Press Freedom Day observed today. Cameroon occupies the 130th position out of 180 on the 2024 World Press Freedom Index Security Ranking by Reporters Without Borders. The ranking shows that journalism practice in the country remains difficult, even if Cameroon dropped from position 138 in 2023 to 130 in 2024. Innocent Aze has the details.
Freedom in Cameroon is threatened by those who should be guarantors, political authorities. Journalists continue to face intimidation, threats, arrest, torture, and detention for reporting the truth. Some have even been killed as a result. Access to information is an uphill task in the face of authorities. All of these have earned Cameroon the 130th position of 180 on the 2024 World Press Freedom Index Security Ranking, published by Reporters Without Borders. Though a drop from the 138th position, occupied in 2023 by 8 places, impunity faced by media men and women remains a major problem yet to be addressed in Cameroon. Practicing journalism in Cameroon is difficult, as illustrated on the map. The indicator shows 4 journalists are detained as of today and 0 killed since January 2024. Reporters Without Borders have been among those condemning and requesting the immediate and unconditional release of journalists arrested and detained for doing their job. Reporters Without Borders had as well investigated the murder of Martinez Zogo in the Central Region, Anyen Denso in the Northwest Region, and Samuel Waziri in the Southwest Region, demanding the perpetrators be identified and punished. Authorities are called upon to protect journalists and grant them freedom of expression and access to information.
Now let's talk politics. Political actors and other political parties in Cameroon have informed Elections Cameroon that registration kits are insufficient and in most cases they are even defective. The concerns or problems were raised at a regional concentration meeting of Electoral board members which took place in Douala today. A reporter for me, Armstrong Sander, attended that meeting. He now tells us more.
To sift through all the concerns of those involved in the electoral process. Before the media and political parties, members of the Electoral Council responded to all kinds of concerns, one of them being why Elections Cameroon Elecam requires a resident card from Cameroonians in the diaspora to register them on the electoral list, even though this document is not provided for by the law in Cameroon. Professor Titi Noel response.
Mais la carte consulaire, c'est ça qu'on exige en réalité. Le résident, ça c'est la carte du pays qui vous accueille, qui vous donne que vous êtes résident là-bas. Mais le carte consulaire, c'est le Cameroun qui sait qu'il a dans son territoire un Camerounais.
We should therefore perhaps expect a communication from Elecam to correct a violation of the law which irritates Cameroonians resident in the diaspora. In any case, at the start of registration on first day in Paris, France, Elections Cameroon Elecam turned away Cameroonians who did not have a resident card. Several political actors also recalled that in 2018, Elecam, on whose instructions the Cameroonian ambassador to France said was carrying out his activities, did not require a resident card. This is evidenced by this press release from the head of Cameroon's diplomatic post in Paris in 2017 on the eve of the presidential election. On the issue of registration kits in Cameroon and in the diaspora, political parties and actors pointed out to Elecam that they are largely insufficient and often defective. Kogni, Carlos Ngualem and Titi Noel explains further.
Elecam a fait des prévisions sans avoir la capacité, n'est-ce pas?
Elecam n'a donné aucune réponse. On a plutôt l'impression que le Conseil électoral n'a aucun pouvoir vis-à-vis du directeur général des élections.
Responding to recriminations against the Electoral Code, Professor Dorothy Lumunganjuma insisted on explaining that it is the current law which governs electoral operations in Cameroon. Even if it can be improved, it is this text which dates as far back as 2012 which should be the legal reference for political actors pending a modification.
Staying in politics, former SCF militant Shewa David has dismissed allegations that he is being manipulated by the Minister of Territorial Administration to create a new political party. Speaking to reporters in Yaoundé today, Shewa David also decried attempts to hinder the authorization of his party, as Babila Jonathan tells us in the report which comes up next.
After successful attempt to succeed the Social Democratic Front SDF founding national chairman, late John Frundi, and what he calls hijacking of the party by some of its present-day leaders, Shewa David quit the party, claiming that it has drifted away from its initial line of action in the fight for social justice and the interest of the people. News of the new party he created has attracted accusations of manipulation by Territorial Administration Minister Tanganji Paul. He has rejected such allegations.
Since I was born, I have never met with His Excellency Tanganji Paul face to face. Talk less of conniving with him to ruin the SDF.
He condemns alleged attempts by some SDF and Cameroon People's Democratic Movement CPDM officials to hinder the authorization of his party.
these dubious cheap politicians and power mongers, I want to tell you, the God I save is a living God. Your up and down movements shall be in vain.
In response to accusations that he wanted to create confusion by naming his party the Social Democratic Face Front SDFF, he announced a change of name.
For the sake of peace, love and unity, on the 30th April 2024 at 4 p.m., although others were in for, we unanimously decided in the General Assembly to modify or to change the name of Social Democratic Face Front, SDFF, to Democratic Liberation Party.
He told reporters in Yaoundé that his party is out to fight for change and for the growth, stability, and well-being of the nation and her people. The party awaits legalization by the Minister of Territorial Administration.
And now, before we move on to the second part of the news, let's now take you to the Ndonga Monsoon Division. Two neighboring villages in that part of the country of the northwest region are now at loggerheads following a land dispute which dates back to 2013 in the locality called Mborong. And natives from the both villages are claiming ownership over about 50 hectares of palm plantation land, which most families in that area rely on for a living. Let's now have the details with Mala Glory.
A land of over 50 hectares of palm plantation in a place called Mbok Plain has been the center of dispute between the people of Njirong and Tumbok, two neighboring villages in the Ndonga Mountain Division, northwest region. A land dispute which started since 2013 recently resurfaced after a quarrel erupted between farmers who came to harvest. According to the natives of Njirong, the people of Tumbo intruded into their farms, harvested their palm nuts, and destroyed their crops.
Farm so we don't work and plant corn we don't germinate this so they don't can turn it off.
We had already cultivated the farm and planted the seeds. Unfortunately, the people of Ntumbo, about 200 of them came in, worked the place for the second time and planted their own seed as well. After then, they moved to our plantations, harvested the palm nuts while destroying some. They also came out with machete and most often used them to kill.
I go. Yet the killers, they worker free. They still commit more atrocities.
Njirong farmers complain that the Ntumbo people often visit the farm only during harvest, as was the case recently when they came in their numbers, harvested and destroyed their farms. We labor, and when it's time to harvest, they come and harvest everything from us. After several accusations, the Ntumbo people in a recent release confirmed they have been visiting the farmland but claim they are the rightful owners and call on the government to reinforce military presence in the area for the safety of their farmers. The Njirong people on their part also plead with the government to intervene. We are here in pains in Borong and we are suffering. Each time we report to the authorities, they don't come. Nothing is done.
Now so that
the case is presently in the hands of administrative authorities while investigations are in process.
Thank you, Glory. That report brings us to the end of the first part of the news. Talking Points comes up next. Welcome back, viewers. Talking Points will be based on the observation of the World Press Freedom Day with focus on journalism and environmental protection. And our guest tonight is Alain Bertrand Ononino. He is a country director of the Worldwide Fund for Nature, the WWF. Thank you, sir, for accepting to be our guest on Talking Point tonight. Now, this year's World Press Freedom Day's theme, like I mentioned a while ago, focuses on environmental protection. As a personality who is involved in protecting the environment, you work with the WWF. Why do you think accent this year is on journalists getting interested in protecting the environment we live in?
First of all, we are really pleased to know that this theme of World Press Freedom Day is focusing on environment. It really shows the increased interest that is being put on protecting our environment. But it's also a response to the crisis that the Earth is facing because of issues such as biodiversity loss, with poaching, illegal wildlife trade, and the loss of other key biodiversity species. Also because of deforestation, the fact that we are cutting trees in an unsustainable way. Also because of pollution with plastics, and finally climate change, which has some very diverse effects in terms of droughts, floods, and other loss of key species. So the focus for this year, World Press Freedom Day, on environmental protection is really, really important in such a way that it is putting a highlight on the journalism. But journalists as those who are supposed to join the efforts, efforts put in place by other stakeholders, by the government, by the civil society, by the local communities. So journalists are definitely brought part of all those other stakeholders in order for them to be more engaged in protecting our environment.
In line, Mr. Alembetran, why do you think it is imperative for journalists to get interested in environmental journalism, especially at this point in time when climate change, the negative effects of climate change are now a reality, especially in Cameroon?
As we all know, journalism is usually called the fourth power. So journalists have this ability to really tell compelling stories, to really touch the the public in general, to really touch a large audience. So we are really hoping that journalists are going to be the relay of those at the forefront of protecting the environment, meaning the environmental officials on the ground, but also their partners, the conservation organizations, the private sector, the local communities, being able to transform the facts and figures coming from the field to really inspiring stories in order for people not just to raise their awareness, but also to lead to a change in behavior. That behavior change, it's ultimately what we need. Everybody, each and every one of us, where we are, to have this change in our mindset, knowing that we only have one planet and we need to take environmental friendly actions in order to preserve the planet from the threats I've just mentioned.
And now, Mr. Alain Bertrand, we might also want to find out from you, journalists always have this problem of access to information, especially when it comes to having vital information concerning the environment. How does your organ, the WWF, make it easy for journalists to have access to information when need be?
The thing I would like to say is that journalists are our allies. The support we are providing to the government and other stakeholders has to be accompanied, and journalists are well placed to really enhance and spread over the work and the results that are being recorded in the field. We have a communication department, and that communication department engages with all the media, the written press, the TV, radio, digital media. So we have information, we have data that are accessible. We also give the opportunity for journalists to go to the field, to visit our field site, to really have the first-hand information, to really see the reality in those remote areas and come back and tell the stories with their words. And we know how great journalists are to tell good stories and powerful stories that are able to bring change.
And now, sir, before we go, these questions speak to those who are watching us out there. What is the importance of protecting our environment for the benefits, not only our benefits, but the benefits also of the coming generation?
We have only one house, which is our planet Earth. That this planet is giving us everything. It's giving us the air we are breathing, the water we are drinking, the food we are using to feed ourselves. So we need to make sure that this house is kept safe for the future generations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alain Betra Ononino, for accepting to be our guest on Talking Point tonight. Just to remind our viewers again that you're the country director of the WWF, and we're talking about journalism or journalists getting involved or interested in environmental protection. Thank you, and hope to have you again another time. Viewers, thank you so much for always being there. Don't go away. Our programs continue this evening. The news in the French language comes up at 8 p.m. and Equinoxe comes up at 7 p.m. Have a wonderful weekend in the company of programs on Equinoxe Television. Bye-bye for now.